Hello, everyone. Thank you for viewing this presentation on the Inflation Reduction Act. My name is Terry Welsher, and I will get us started. This was recorded on March 8th, 2023, so there may have been some additional details that developed since we did that recording. Your presenters are members of the Gwinnett and Forsyth chapters of Citizens Climate Education, a grassroots, nonpartisan international organization advocating for the clean energy transition and effective action to limit the potential damaging effects of climate change. We would like to share with you the opportunities available with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA. Like many acts passed in Congress, the name of the bill does not reflect its most important features and benefits. Our emphasis here will be on the clean energy and climate provisions of the bill. What we hope you will learn from this presentation is how this legislation will help you take full advantage of the emerging clean energy transition, how it will help underserved communities, and at the same time promote clean air and reduce the most harmful possible effects of climate change. Here are our main goals for this presentation. First, we will briefly review the motivations for the clean energy climate provisions of the bill. Then we will dive into the many opportunities in the IRA, how they work, what is in it for you and your communities, and how you can get ready to reap its benefits. We will mention this in greater detail, but later we want to mention in greater detail later, but we want to mention up front a great, easy to use tool for assessing your specific opportunities and benefits based on your location and household income. It is called the Rewiring America Savings Calculator. Here's that link, so you can make a note of it now. We will do a brief demonstration of its use later in the presentation. Also, there are links here for this presentation, as well as a link to our organization, citizensclimate.org. These links will also be in the YouTube video description of this recording. Just a little bit on climate change. The science of climate change and the effects it is already having and will have in the future is a broad and deep subject in and of itself, and we won't be discussing these details in this presentation. The images in the slide highlight just a few of the major impacts. More heat waves, heat-related deaths, flooding due to increased rainfall and sea level rise in some areas, droughts in other areas. In some areas of the world, the changing climate will make it so that local populations cannot prosper where they are and will have to migrate as climate refugees and may not always be welcomed. Beyond climate change mitigation, there are many other very important benefits. Clean, renewable energy sources provide a more stable energy supply to insulate us from global fossil fuel supply and price fluctuations and dependence on hostile governments. Clean energy will also save lives by reducing the damaging health effects of air pollution. Further, the clean energy transition is and will continue to create new jobs, many of which cannot be outsourced to other countries. By participating in this transition at home, you will also be boosting this new emerging economy. Finally, the clean energy transition will reduce some of the worst incidents of environmental injustice associated with the placement of fossil fuel-based power generation facilities. The IRA includes specific benefits for underserved communities. There are many elements in the IRA that move us to a cleaner, healthier economy. Most of these are carrots, that is, their incentives, such as tax credits and rebates. And you'll be hearing a lot of those in a few minutes. There is one stick in the bill that is a penalty, which is the fee imposed on methane leakage, which we will not cover here. We are going to be emphasizing the incentives in the shaded items in this slide in the remainder of this presentation. And I will now pass the mic to Ken Kirby, who will discuss the residential energy customer benefits.
Great, thank you, Terry. Hey, my name is Ken Kirby, and I will tell you about some of the opportunities for clean energy and efficiency in the residential space. Broadly speaking, there are two types of home improvements covered by the Inflation Reduction Act, not kind of rooftop solar. These are energy efficient electric appliances and weatherization. By upgrading our homes to electric and improving on energy efficiency, we can save money, eliminate a major source of both carbon and indoor air pollution. The IRA provides benefits in both the weatherization and electrification areas. On top of the cost savings, environmental and health benefits, if you're thinking about solar, this can also add reliability or resiliency to your home. The IRA can help you cover the costs and then save money each month on your bills in these specific areas, including the areas on the next slide. This includes solar, of course, and a newer solution on the residential front, heat pumps. I'll talk more about those shortly. While you may notice that a number of these items reflect a cap of $1,200 per year, one way to handle this is to plan and space out your home improvements across several years. Electric vehicle chargers are covered here as well, and electric vehicles will be covered later in this presentation by one of my colleagues. I want to stop and give a caveat that we're not tax experts. We're just volunteers who have done a lot of digging, and new information on these incentives continues to emerge. So the rebates we'll discuss are run by the states, and we haven't been able to get info on exactly the very specifics about what Georgia will do. If you want to take advantage of the IRA benefits, perhaps the best place to start is with a home energy audit. This can be done by your local power provider in most cases. It can help you determine what to tackle for your specific case and give you guidance on prioritizing various opportunities. Here, the IRA can help with 30% of the cost, up to $150. Several of the power providers are listed here that provide power in Gwinnett, and they can individually, you can contact them and get help with a home energy audit. Georgia Power provides virtual assistance or a virtual assessment, I believe. Jackson EMC provides in-home and virtual assessments, and then these other providers, Sony and Walton, also provide assessments. So contact them to get help with that. If an energy audit helps you identify steps to take, some of those steps may require more electrical capacity. I have a good friend in New Jersey who had his gas water heater go out. He hired someone to put in an electric replacement, but was told that he would have to upgrade his electric panel. And so rather than wait for that to be done, he just settled on another gas heater. That was a real opportunity missed. An electric panel upgrade may reduce your risk of not being able to take advantage of other benefits in a timely manner. New HVAC, water heaters, and induction stove installations may require 240 volt outlets. Consulting with an electrician to determine ahead of time what upgrades you might need is a good idea. If you need these upgrades, once the upfront rebate programs are set up around 2024, the Inflation Reduction Act will offer up to $4,000 in upfront discounts on electric panel upgrades and $2,500 for wiring upgrades for low and middle income households. There's also a 30% tax credit available, up to $600 for these upgrades under Section 25C of the tax code, and that resets every year. Insulation plays an incredible role in energy efficiency. It's the only upgrade where you don't have to burn any carbon to get more efficiency out of your existing system. Insulation effectiveness is called its R value, and thicker amounts of insulation typically result in a higher R value. It's important to have this evaluated during an energy audit. Another factor and potential upgrade area is air sealing. It doesn't matter how much blanket you have on if there's cold air leaking in, right? So air sealing is accomplished with a blower door test, which pressurizes or depressurizes your home to identify where the air leaks are. You could even attempt a DIY solution if you're really into this, and there's a 30% cost rebate here that's related to the IRA that you could take advantage of for insulation. It's called a heat pump. A heat pump basically moves heat from one place to another by using electricity to power a fan and an air compressor. It can take heat from outdoor air or water or ground and in the winter and bring it indoors, or take heat from the air in your home during summer and move it outdoors. The latter is basically what an air conditioner does, but a single heat pump unit can move heat in both directions. So you don't need a separate furnace and air conditioner. They're super efficient, 3 to 5 times more efficient than most current fossil fuel heating systems because it's easier to move heat around than to make it by burning stuff. That means heat pumps reduce both emissions and monthly energy bills. Georgia is a great place to have a heat pump. Newer models can work well below zero, but they don't typically have to work that hard in our environment. Manufacturers are also easily ramping up production because they're similar in design to a standard AC, so they should be available when you want one. Our state is seeing some significant annual savings in some cases, for example, replacing a worn out electric furnace with a heat pump. Once the upfront rebate programs are set up around 2024, the Inflation Reduction Act will offer up to $8,000 in upfront discounts on home heat pumps for low and middle income households. It'll cover 100% of the appliance upgrade costs for low income households and 50% for middle income households up to $8,000. There's also a 30% tax credit available up to $2,000 for any home that installs a heat pump. You don't really need to know this, but the heat pump tax credit is in Section 25C of the Internal Revenue Tax Code. So if you install a heat pump at your home this year, you can deduct $2,000 from your tax liability when you file your federal tax return in April of 2024. They use induction to heat the cookware directly, so you don't have to heat up the whole kitchen. They're responsive and I think beautiful, clean, powerful, quiet. They are sort of the next thing. These are covered under the Inflation Reduction Act as well. We've talked about heat pumps for home heating and cooling, but they are also an efficient way to heat hot water and to dry clothes. These new types of appliances are covered as well, and I'll touch more on these here. Just like home heating system units, they move heat around to heat up the water in the tank, and they're 2 to 3 times more efficient than the most current water heating systems. That can translate to hundreds of dollars of savings on an annual household energy bills. Once the upfront rebate programs are set up around 2024, the Inflation Reduction Act will offer up to $1,750 in upfront discounts on home heat pump water heaters for specifically for low and middle income households. There's also a 30% tax credit available up to $2,000 for any home that installs a heat pump, water, or space heater. The tax credit resets every year. So, for example, if you install a heat pump HVAC system in 2023 and a heat pump water heater in 2024, you can qualify for the 30% tax credit up to $2,000 both years. So it may be advantageous to spread out your upgrade projects, just like we said. There will also be a rebate of up to $840 available for heat pump clothes dryers, but you can only qualify for this if your current dryer is not electric. Okay, so let's jump over and talk about solar PV and storage for just a moment, and then we'll move on. So the IRA also has incentives for rooftop solar and home battery storage systems. These are great because solar panels produce zero emission electricity. There is an environmental impact associated with the mining of minerals to manufacture the solar panels and batteries, but this is really just a one-time impact, unlike the sort of never-ending extraction, transport, refining, and burning of fossil fuels. Combining solar panels with battery storage can also protect your home against power grid outages, and solar panels guard against rising electricity rates by reducing your reliance on your utility. One nice aspect of the solar and battery tax credit under Section 25D of the tax code is that it is uncapped. No matter how much your solar and or battery systems cost, you get a tax credit for 30% of that cost. For an average 6 kilowatt solar system costing $15,000, let's say $15,300, that's a $4,600 tax credit, and similar for an average 10 kilowatt hour battery storage system. The 30% tax credit can also apply to an electrical panel upgrade if needed in conjunction with a rooftop solar installation. Again, drilling into a few specifics for Georgia, um, we are home to Hanwha Qcell, which is one of the largest solar panel production companies in the U.S. They're expanding and adding some planned 2,500 jobs here in Georgia. Georgia is in the top 10 states with the largest installed solar capacity currently. And while our legislative climate for rooftop solar is still kind of mixed, there are currently bills in play that are advantageous to solar, such as SB 210, focused on net metering. So Georgia is a great place to do solar. I just want to talk for a moment on storage. Storage is definitely a hot topic. The technology is changing quickly, and the public policy in this area is changing as well. For example, the concept of virtual power plants is giving some folks the ability to help the power company shift power to accommodate different loads and forego, building of new like peaker plants. So it can save the utility a lot of money, and the owners, these batteries, get a premium payment for the power that they sell back at that point in time when they're doing it through part of this program. Also, with a storage system, you may be able to, depending on how your rate plan is structured with your utility, you may be able to offset high time of use rates and do what they sort of term electricity arbitrage, where you can buy it low and sell it back, or buy it low and use it at a time when it would otherwise cost more. And I'll just mention that some folks suggest to wait on storage solutions a bit further until the payback is more clear and technology is not changing so quickly. So Terry mentioned the Rewiring America calculator, and I'd like to just jump over and have Kathy show this to you briefly.
And I am going to just show you how easy it is to use this calculator. You just put in some generic information, such as I'm going to put my zip code in, and then you have to select this, either homeowner or renter. And I'm just going to go with kind of their default setting, but I have to type it in again just to make sure that it's new information to them. And then I'm going to be claiming as single, but they also have joined and head of household. And one person is my household size, but you can see it goes up from there, and then you just hit calculate. So it's very generic information, but it gives you all of this information, personalized benefits, upfront discounts. It will cover 50% of the costs. You can see the tax credits available and estimated savings on your bill per year for the total incentives package here. Then it goes into very detailed things that you are eligible for and how much you would save, or how much it would cost and how much the rebate will be, and then when it should be available, and then more information for all of these items. So it's a very user-friendly but very helpful guide. And Scott's going to talk a little bit about our Solarize Gwinnett campaign.
Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Presson. Let's wrap up the solar portion with some exciting news we have about the upcoming Solarize Gwinnett campaign that we are participating in. This campaign will offer a community group purchasing program that gives preferred pricing and installation costs for rooftop solar and battery storage for residential and small businesses in Gwinnett. So the more people that sign up to have a system installed, the larger the discount the contractor will offer to everyone who's participating. This is being organized by a number of nonprofit environmental organizations, including the Gwinnett Citizens Climate Education Group. And we are planning to launch the campaign on Earth Day, April 22nd. And you can check out more information on the Solarize Gwinnett website. Let's change direction a little bit and talk about renters. What's in this program for renters? Well, the rebates and discounts and tax credits can be used by renters. Some that are most likely applicable are you're still eligible for the new or used EV tax credits. As far as electrification upgrades, some appliances are window unit heat pumps, which is something new coming to the market soon that kind of go in a window. Induction cooktops and stoves and heat pump clothes dryers are portable so that if you need to move, you can take them with you. The IRA also includes some provisions that may benefit renters by incentivizing energy retrofits in apartment buildings that the owner may take advantage of. And you also may be able to switch your plan with your electric utility, include more renewable energy, such as if they open a new large community solar farm and you're able to buy like a share of that. Let's talk about EVs and charging. EVs, why are they good for the climate? Well, transportation currently accounts for about 28% of US greenhouse gas emissions. And EVs have no direct emissions while driving. So there's a large reduction in emissions. And there may be some indirect emissions depending on the source of electricity used to charge the batteries, because the utility may be burning coal or burning gas, or maybe not. Maybe they have enough renewable, or maybe you have solar panels that you're using to charge the vehicle. But whatever the case, it's much less than just using the fossil fuels, either gasoline or diesel. So what benefits might EVs have that would be worth switching to them? Well, actually, they're more efficient than gasoline or diesel cars, and they save money. They're about 1/3 the fuel cost per mile and about 1/2 the maintenance cost. I have an EV, and when I looked at the owner's manual for the maintenance schedule, it was rotate tires. Next time, rotate tires. Next time, rotate tires. So it's really much simpler and doesn't have as many moving parts as the normal internal combustion engine has. They're also better for the health and environment, since you don't have any tailpipe pollution, and they have a lower lifetime greenhouse gas emission level. Some raise issues about the lithium that's going in the batteries currently and the mining for that. But once they've accomplished the mining, then you don't have any ongoing use of fossil fuels, such as you would to fuel a gas or diesel car. So what are the incentives for EVs? Well, for the tax credits, it's kind of complicated. There's a tax credit for up to $7,500 for new EVs assembled in North America if they meet these criteria. For the new car, the list price has to be less than $55,000. For vans, SUVs, and trucks, less than $80,000. And this would apply for individuals earning under $150,000 on their taxes, or $300,000 for married filing jointly. Now, there's two pieces to this $7,500. There's a $3,750 well, up to 3,750 tax credit. That applies because of the battery's critical minerals and whether they come from the US or free trade partners or elsewhere, and up to 3,500 if most of the battery components are made and assembled in the USA. So it's sort of encouraging more manufacturing at home. There is one caveat, and that is for dealers, they can purchase the EV and lease it and take the 7,500 tax credit that doesn't have all these strings and conditions applied to it, and lease it out and lease it for less because they get the tax credit. So that might be something you might consider as an option when you look to purchase the EV. So what are things I should be aware of and think about? Well, as of March 1st, these are the manufacturers: Audi, BMW, Ford, GM, Nissan, Rivian, Stellantis for Dodge and Jeep, Tesla, Volkswagen, and Volvo that have qualified EV models where they've demonstrated that they meet those conditions in the previous slide. Now, the other manufacturers of EVs are working on getting that approval, but it may take them some time as they adjust their supply chains and assembly plants to meet the conditions to really get the credit. Of note is that in 2024, the tax credit will become transferable to the dealer, and that will benefit moderate to lower income families that maybe wouldn't be able to get the whole tax credit because they have a lower tax bill. So is this right for me? Some things to consider. It's most convenient when you have a charger at home or at work. What's called a level 2 charger is preferred. It needs a 220-volt line to the charger in your home. And it will charge a typical car in maybe 6 to 8 hours. And the public charging network is kind of spotty in parts of a lot of states, but they are working hard to expand it to make it more convenient, not only in cities, but along the interstate and in communities. Another thing that is been demonstrated is that the lifetime cost of an EV is lower than a comparable gas diesel vehicle when looked at over a 15-year useful life because of the lower maintenance and lower fuel costs. One thing new in the bill is that they are offering a tax credit now for used EVs. And that credit would be the lesser of $4,000 or 30% of the sale price. But there are these criteria that apply. It's a little simpler than the new EV, but there still are these conditions. The individual would have to have under $75,000 in income or $150,000 for those married filing jointly. The EV is at least 2 years old. The price for the sale cannot exceed $25,000. The vehicle has to weigh less than 14,000 pounds. The battery capacity must be at least 7 kilowatt hours, which is roughly 32-mile range. And most plug-in hybrids would be eligible for that. And it has to be purchased from a dealership as the first transfer of the vehicle. So you would be the second owner. And as I mentioned, there's none of the made in North America and sourcing requirements involved with the used EVs. In 2024, like with the new vehicles, the tax credits become transferable to auto dealers, essentially converting them to upfront discounts that act as a rebate. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about charging. The charging units can be expensive, and you do have to have the wiring for the 220 line for installation. The credit would be 30% up to $1,000. But this credit is only offered to those of low income and in rural locations. So you would need to check when you're looking to purchase it to find out if you're eligible for that. Your electric utility may also offer incentives for having a charger installed. And one advantage is that some of the utilities then offer you a preferred electricity rate, sort of a time of use, so that you're charging it at a low rate, but not during their peak hours. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob O'Brien. I'm going to spend just a couple minutes on small businesses, including nonprofits, and what's available in the IRA for them. So as you can see, and this is just giving a few of the points or the incentives that are available. You can see there's tax credit for switching to solar, for energy efficiency improvements, and also tax credit for purchase of clean commercial trucks and vans, these electric or fuel cell models. And remember that nonprofits includes churches. There are also incentives for, medium and large businesses. For those, that probably just refer you, talk to the accounting department and ask them to check into it. There is more info here on this shortened link that we have, where you can find out if you're, a small business, or you're involved in the leadership of a nonprofit, around other kind of the full list of what's available. And now Jay is going to talk to us about community benefits.
Hello all, my name is Jay Bassett, and we're going to go on a different conversation. We've heard a lot about the individual benefits and the rebates and the incentives. We heard at the beginning Terry talk about that the intent of the Inflation Reduction Act is also to really look at it from a community and environmental justice perspective, and really looking at it from a low and moderate income perspective. So what I want to try to do is lay out and maybe help you connect with some other programs under the Inflation Reduction Act that are part and intended to work with the rebates. What you see before you is actually a slide that the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency put together that kind of translates some of the takes the individual incentives, but now puts it into a community perspective. As we talked about with Scott on renters, these are programs that can help renters and the landlords that own that to be able to do the energy efficiency to reduce energy burdens for those renters, in addition to the appliances and things they can buy directly under those rebates. And so what you'll see here is just think of yourself kind of in the middle as your city or your community, and that there's some significant funding that's coming up, both what we call bottom up, that's through the US EPA's environmental justice grants, which I'll talk about a little bit, as well as from the top down, which is the recently released climate pollution reduction planning and implementation grants, which I'm going to give you a quick overview of. And you can see how they come together in the communities that you live and serve, in addition to the individual incentives. I want to make one note. If you look there, you also see that there's other programs that you won't see in here. Some are in here, some are not in here, that are also part of this conversation. One I do want to point out to you specifically here, if you look under what they call the Clean Bus Program, that's one where there's incentives in place for school systems to replace their fleet of buses with electrical buses, and that run, as well as EV infrastructure that is also available through some of these programs. So I just want to make you aware of that there's other programs that also can support your community. But again, I'm going to focus on these two. So the first one I want to maybe give you a little bit of insight, is what they call the Environmental and Climate Justice Block Grants. That's $2.8 billion of EPA that's going to be dispersing these grants to support community-based organizations and to build their capacity to be able to work within their communities to do things like energy efficiency improvement, electrification, as well as eventually renewable power solutions. And this is money that's been dedicated to help communities that otherwise, and those organizations that don't have the technical capacity, the technical piece, as well as the capacity to be able to take advantage of that. And these grants are now currently open to do that. These grants are good for 3 years. And right now there's a number of grants that are open that are either providing technical assistance, they're allowing local governments, they're called the government to government grants, to actually work with community-based organizations to be able to develop solutions for building efficiency and electrification and renewable energy, as well as grants to go directly to community-based organizations to work together to be able to do the same thing within, as we say, disadvantaged and environmental justice communities. There's another set of offerings that's getting ready to come out the door in some very interesting ways. Right now, they're gathering information and hearing from these communities, but the majority of the $2.6 billion should be coming out in some form, and there'll be some program guidance on that sometime over the next couple of months. Now I want to shift, as we talked about bottom up, to what we call top down. These are the climate pollution reduction planning and implementation grants. These grants will be actually given to cities and states. So to give you an idea and a little bit of a description of how this is going to work, and this just came out literally 5 days ago or 6 days ago on March the 1st. The agency is issuing what they call non-competitive planning grants, which basically means they're giving free money to all 50 states, the District of DC, as well as Puerto Rico, to develop what they call statewide climate action plans. And then there's another chunk of money going to the 67 largest cities. So in my case, I live in Metro Atlanta. And in Metro Atlanta, they will get a $1 million grant. And the purpose of those grants is for the metro area governments to come together and develop what they call a climate action plan. So you can see within the program objectives, it's really to get, in this case, municipalities to work together and to actually maximize the investments going to disadvantaged communities through the climate action grants, or we call the climate action plans. And the thing is, the big chunk of money, the $4.6 billion you see there, those cities that are underneath one of those climate action plans, either at the state level or in the metro level, and they bring their communities to the table, they have to be able to have it in the plan, and they have to fund projects only if it's within the approved state or metro-wide plans. And to show you how fast this is going, the notice came out on 1 March, and both the states and locals really have to have what they call the notice to participate, which is accept the money, and then move forward quickly on work plans and budgets to be able to produce what they call a priority climate action plan that the agency, US EPA, will then be funding projects for starting in January of 2024, which from a federal government perspective is extraordinarily fast. So that means as they work on these plans over the next 11 months is to be ready to take advantage of the $4.6 billion. The next one that's coming right behind that, which is another Inflation Reduction Act funding opportunity, is the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So this fund, and again, think about those citywide or statewide climate action plans, this links up a larger fund of investments that can be brought into cities and community development. There's two pieces to this funding opportunity. And that, again, right now, the US EPA pushed out a program guidance document that they still haven't really clearly defined exactly how this is going to work. But here's what they have said, that out of that fund, $20 billion of what they call general low-income assistance competitive grants is a mechanism for being able to finance and have communities be able to finance through green banks to be able to do the, as we call it, the conversion or transformation to the green economy of doing building efficiency electrification within these communities, as well as other improvements needed to housing to be able to move toward renewable energy solutions. The $7 billion fund, what they call the Zero Emissions Technology Fund, is again for, as you say, eligible nonprofits as well as municipalities to really directly finance and put in place grants to actually convert to the rooftop solar and community solars and other storage things we talked about within these communities. So now you can kind of see where these investments with the individual incentives connect together for renters in a meaningful way that allow them to fully participate in the Inflation Reduction Act opportunities of the transformation to renewable energy sources, to building efficiency and electrification. So we're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to give a quick story of a real life project that's underway that shows and illustrates how this works. Here in the city of Atlanta, there's a community-based organization called the Life Cycle Building Center. What I mean by a community-based organization, it's a nonprofit in the city of Atlanta. And what it does is it actually takes the embodied carbon and building materials that then are deconstructed, and those building materials get reused back into housing stock within these communities we were just talking about, the disadvantaged and environmental justice communities, and using those materials at a lower cost and using that embodied carbon to do energy efficiency work. So Life Cycle Building Center, so what they're doing as they reuse those building materials, they've reached out to what we call the Grove Park community, which is one community within the west side of Atlanta. They have actually set up the Grove Park Foundation, which is a community development corporation. So remember, we talked about that $20 billion in financing money, along with the what they call the community finance development institutions. That money can be used by Grove Park to be able to build and actually improve legacy home improvements for both legacy folks that still can't take advantage of the individual assessments, as well as working with the city of Atlanta on doing subsidies for subsidized housing to be able to make these improvements. And Grove Park is one that Life Cycle Building Center is working with as part of providing them reused building materials to make these improvements. So this last slide shows kind of how it comes together. We formed a coalition of over 24 nonprofits through the Life Cycle Building Center, where we said, what we want to do is reuse building materials, but we actually want to do workforce development. So we're actually training people out of the community on how to do deconstruction and other sustainability skills, things like, how do we do rewiring and electrification, and where we're using these reused materials to be able to do phase 2, where we're actually doing from people from the community working through the Inflation Reduction Act investments through folks like the Grove Park Foundation to actually do the extensive home repairs and improvements for energy efficiency retrofits, to be able to take using repurposed materials in that embedded carbon to be able to do and make those improvements that renters and folks can take advantage as part of this conversion. And then the last piece would be bringing in the bigger investment on the sustainable sources of energy, things like rooftop solar and other things, by preparing these homes and taking care of things like mold issues, holes, as well as wiring issues, to be able to go and really participate in the transformation for working families into the green economy. So that's how these things come together. I will let you know this is also being done in partnership with City of Atlanta Housing. where we're actually incentivizing landlords to be able to take advantage of this program for reusing those materials and being able to link them with these financing mechanisms for their renters. Because the issue is with the city of Atlanta on affordable housing, that energy burdens is the big impediment. And we can then use the Inflation Reduction Act to be able to solve affordable housing by reducing energy burdens and making sure they can fully participate in, as we call, distributed energy solutions. This project has already gotten a Department of Energy award and prize for doing this. And we're going for part 2 of the prize. We are one of 20 entities throughout the nation to get this prize because we're linking circularity of reusing the embodied carbon in building materials with what we call electrification and building efficiency. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kathy, and she's going to give the summary statements for tonight.
Thank you so much, Jay. And to summarize and wrap things up, I want to just say that we know that this is complex and we've repeated a few points deliberately, but we hope you're finding it informative and it will be useful to you as you plan your plan for electrification. But I'd like to back up for just a minute and talk about the Inflation Reduction Act a little bit. It's the largest climate bill ever passed in the US. It allocates about $370 billion for building up renewable energy programs and infrastructure and incentivizing programs that cut greenhouse gas emissions. The ambitious climate provisions in this act and in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act involve over 100 programs that are across many U.S. departments and agencies, and these programs will have far-reaching benefits. Though final guidance is still pending for some of the programs, there will be many opportunities over the next 10 years for everyone to help cut climate pollution. The IRA will help reduce U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by about 40% below 2005 levels by 2030. And that will bring the U.S. within reach of our Paris Agreement commitments and targets. And this graph kind of shows you why. U.S. greenhouse gas emissions have been steadily falling, at least in a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of trajectory for a while now, since about 2005 or 7 when it was at its peak. With the business as usual trajectory, we would likely have seen cuts of 27% by 2030 anyway. That is the red line or the business as usual line. If we incorporate the Inflation Reduction Act's climate provisions into our estimate, our reductions speed up, and that's a very good thing. And that's the part that's shown in green. The further out we go, the more uncertainty there is, but you can see where they estimate the Inflation Reduction Act would land us. We're still not meeting the Paris targets, so we aren't there yet. 40% is good, but it's not enough. So this bill is mostly incentives based. So it depends on us to take advantage of these incentives to work optimally. And with the addition of a carbon fee and dividend on fossil fuels and the dividend return to consumers to help defray the increased energy costs, there would be even greater greenhouse gas reductions. And that would be a win-win for our climate and our economy. So that's one of the important policies that we like to support in CCE. Importantly, what we do in this decade will greatly affect our ability to reach net zero emissions by 2050 and to keep temperatures as low as possible in the future. So why go electric? Well, there are 3 big important reasons, and this is kind of narrowing all the things that you've heard before down into 3 big reasons. Electrifying our homes and other buildings is a win-win-win. We can reduce our monthly energy bills by switching to more efficient electric technologies. We can improve our family's health by reducing the amount of fossil fuels we're burning in our homes and the associated air pollution that those create. And of course, doing so will also reduce climate pollution and thus slow global warming. You can think of the IRA as a potential green bank account savings. It's a way for us to be thinking about the benefits that we can accrue. Many of these incentives will be around for the next 10 years, so make a plan, and when you need something, use these incentives to electrify. Electrification needs to be our default mode of thinking. But speaking from experience, contractors and installers don't always understand and promote this. So consumers must be aware and informed and know what they want and stand up for what they want in order to reach all these benefits. IRA benefits can basically fit into these two buckets, as we've talked about. Bucket number one is tax credits, and those are pretty straightforward. If you have a tax liability, you can get these. It'll be around for 10 years, and we'll talk about a recap on those later. Bucket number two is the rebates, and they're more generous and should be happening at the point of sale. But there are income limits on those, as we've described, and they're administered by each state's Department of Energy, so we don't know those full details yet, but they should be available later this year or in 2024. The downside is that there is a finite pot of money associated with this, and so that may run out. So you may be wondering, do I qualify for rebates? If a household is making less than 80% of the area median income, it's considered low income and qualifies for the biggest rebates. A household making between 80% and 150% of AMI is considered moderate income and qualifies for smaller rebates. And you can see the figure here in Gwinnett County, according to the U.S. Census Bureau in 2017 to 2021, the Gwinnett median income was $75,853. We don't want to get too hung up on those exact numbers right now, because from what we can tell, different states might define what counts as your quote unquote area differently. In addition, this number is likely to be adjusted for household size. So the best way to get a good idea of whether you're likely to qualify is by using the calculator we looked at earlier, the IRA calculator on the website Rewiring America. Also down at the bottom here, you see an AMI lookup tool from Fannie Mae, which is more real estate based, but it does show you based on zip code level what your area income, median income is. And that is the statistic that the Rewiring America calculator uses. And we've talked a lot, Ken talked a lot about this earlier, tax credits that are now available, and the these will be for every American household that has a tax liability. Tax credits will be applied when you file your federal returns the following year, and they're non-refundable, but you can spread them out, as Ken talked about also. There are basically three categories of tax credits. Number one, there's a 30% tax credit for home energy efficiency upgrades up to $2,000 a year for heat pumps, space, and water heaters, and up to $1,200 a year for other upgrades. These tax credits will reset every year. There's a separate 30% tax credit for solar panel and batteries, and a separate tax credit for EVs. And on this page, you see the White House resources page, with each room having an active link for you to explore further. This link is on our resources page, and it is a lot of fun to explore this. You can see everything that you might be eligible for. Basically, as we talked about earlier, there are two types of home improvements covered by the IRA, not counting rooftop solar, and these are buying energy efficient electric appliances and weatherization. This whitehouse.gov website and the Rewiring America calculator are very user-friendly, so we encourage you to explore them, and you can go as deep as you want. You can spend hours on them and enjoy every second of it. So here you see the interface again. I'm not going to go into that again, but Rewiring America is a nonprofit that was built just to promote the use of these tools and let people enjoy the benefits of the IRA. And I want to read just a short statement from their website. By utilizing the IRA's incentives, Americans will bring billions of dollars in benefits to their communities, saving money at the household level, creating local jobs, and fighting the climate crisis with every electric appliance installed. Since 42% of energy-related emissions comes from machines we rely on daily, our mandate is clear. Within 10 years, every new machine installed must be electric. The good news is that the Inflation Reduction Act is designed to help us ramp to that future. It's up to us to achieve our potential and meet the moment. You can think of these actions today as today's victory gardens. So that sounds like a real call to arms and a real encouraging speech there. On this page, this is also from Rewiring America, but it's their guide. And you see a screenshot from one of their pages. It's a helpful overview chart of their guide. The items highlighted in purple show an upfront discount, and the green shows the tax credits. And this is a reminder that HERA, HERA, means high efficiency electrification rebates. HERA provides upfront discounts of up to $14,000 to enable low and moderate income households to electrify their homes. And it covers 100% of electrification projects costs, both appliances and labor, for low income households, and up to 50% of the cost for moderate income households. This is a very important aspect of the IRA. It was designed to address inequities that marginalized communities have continued to face, especially when it comes to energy burden and health concerns caused by home and environmental pollutants. So again, it's up to each of us to make our plan. Get rewiring ready, create your own plan, and know what's available to you. Be an informed consumer. And again, just bouncing off of Ken's story earlier about his friend and the water heater, preparation keeps you from having to make emergency decisions that can lock in higher costs and fossil fuel emissions for a long time to come. I was working on this presentation. Interestingly, I received an email from Rewiring America that I would like to share about myths. So with this statement as background, I will go into the myths. This is a huge transition. There will be times when it's confusing or frustrating, but electrification is still the only way forward and superior to the alternative in every respect. Electrification success will take millions of decisions made in homes across the country every day, every month, every year. Remember, our mantra should be, when it dies, electrify. So now to the myths. Number one, heat pumps don't work in cold climates. And again, Ken talked about this earlier. Heat pumps have been improved. They're not our grandmother's heat pumps. People are using them in colder climates and they're working well. Number two, electrification is going to break the grid. Well, the grid needs to grow and change, and we need to add transmission capabilities, but the result will be a smarter, more efficient system. America has been there and done that. We increased the amount of electricity delivered by more than 4 times in the period between 1950 and 1970. And a whole host of smarter technologies have been developed since then. Myth number 3, gas is more reliable than electrical power in a power outage. Power outages affect all appliances that need any electricity to function. And we want machines that can bounce back quickly or ideally keep running in a power outage. There are technologies coming to market to keep machines running when the grid goes down. Plus, it's important to remember that gas appliances are sending pollutants into our home 99.9% of the time, just to protect against that 0.1% of time that we actually experience outages. And myth number 4, electrification is too expensive. Well, gas prices are volatile, as we've seen very recently. Looking at the big picture of price and efficiency, electric appliances are the long-term savings winner by far. For an example, heat pumps are 3 to 5 times as efficient as natural gas furnaces. So even though it costs money to replace them, you would make that money back up fairly quickly. And the good news is that Georgia is well positioned as a hub of innovation and new things happening all the time to take advantage of all these benefits. We might be even turning into the Silicon Valley of innovation and electrification. On this page, you can see we would benefit from lower monthly utility bills, millions of jobs created, manufacturing domestically, clean air indoors and out, rural opportunities, and resilient communities, which would uplift disadvantaged communities. And nonprofit partnerships are a big part of this. So you can see in the upper right, we have Drawdown Georgia. That's a unique and exemplary collaboration between our research universities working on the finding the best of Paul Hawkins' Drawdown 100 solutions. And we have narrowed that down to see what's best applicable in Georgia, and they're making great progress. There's also the Georgia Forestry Commission, that has carbon markets, and they're expanding on those. And these will be opportunities for businesses to offset their carbon pollution, especially during their transition to a more clean energy future. And Qcells was already mentioned as one of the largest solar manufacturing companies, and they have announced a recent expansion. Plant Vogtle 3 and 4 units are scheduled to go online this year and produce carbon-free energy for a long time into the future. We have Bluebird buses that are headquartered in Macon and manufacturing in Fort Valley, Georgia. And we have Rivian, Kia, and Hyundai plants, and the SK batteries, and many more. And then we have Rowan, which is a new, it's called Georgia's First Knowledge Community. It's a research-based community in medical, agricultural, environmental sciences, and more. And we are, I also included GIFL, Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, on this slide, because it is an example of some of the community-based partnerships that are supporting this transition to clean energy, connecting faith, community, and planet. So we are really part of a great movement in Georgia, building a better future by embracing the opportunities in this plan, in this law, and I'm excited about it. So a final reminder to make a plan. There are benefits out there for everyone, but we have to take active advantage of them. They're not going to come seeking us down. This is another great web page that you see here, energy.gov. It's Energy Saver Home Energy Assessments. It will give you more information about if your first step, if you decide to have an energy audit, this can tell you everything you need to know. And then beyond that, you're ready to take care of efficiency when a machine wears out, replace it with an electric model, and then electrify. As our electric grid overall gets cleaner, we get more renewables and fewer fossils in there. Our energy gets cheaper and healthier, and that's better for our climate, our health, our ecosystems, and our bottom line. So encourage others to also have a plan. Share your knowledge of our resources that you've seen here tonight and ones that you find on your own. The next several pages are resources that we have put together for you. They're active links, and you can go to the presentation and click on these, or you can just take a screenshot and enjoy going into them. And Rewiring America is up there, and all of the tools that we mentioned in the presentation are here. And then some additional ones that we may not have mentioned, some great books, and then also the Solar Crowdsource campaign, and again, the link to our presentation. So we'd like to thank the Gwinnett County Public Libraries, and especially Amy Perry, for inviting us to share this important information with you. Thank the Fairfax County, Virginia CCL Group and CCL's National Research Team for allowing us to use their slides for this presentation. And the Gwinnett Forsyth CCL Group members for their work on this project. And we thank you most of all for your interest and actions. Thank you again for viewing this. We wish you a very electrical future.